Everybody is ablaze right now. Everybody's wondering what is really going on with Angel Reese. Has she just flat out quit again? Has she quit on the Chicago Sky? Angel, you gotta be, hold on, you have to have some level of self-awareness here.
What if the most talked about player on your team disappears just as the pressure spikes and the wins matter most? That's the question lighting up the WNBA right now. Fans keep asking whether Angel Reese is truly sidelined by a tough back issue or if this is another chapter in a long pattern of day-to-day updates that quietly stretch into weeks. Chicago's grinding through swings in form. Indiana keeps stacking results. And in the middle of it all, a rivalry with Caitlin Clark turns every absence into a headline. Before we dive in, tap subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives, receipts, and breakdowns of the league's biggest storylines. Done? Good. Because the timelines, the optics, and the on-court results tell a story that is hard to ignore. But that's only the surface. The pattern behind the headlines is where things get interesting. Day-to-day reads like comfort. It sounds temporary, manageable, almost routine. In reality, it's a fog machine. Coaches cannot...
I think she's using her back as an excuse to sit out because she doesn't really care about basketball. I think she looks over at Caitlin Clark and says, hey, Caitlin Clark is out with a legitimate injury. I proved my point before the All-Star game when I went on a 10-game run trying to justify being on the All-Star team. When that first ballot came out, when the first voting results came out about the All-Star game and I was 13th, holy cow, Angel Reese panicked, started playing hard, tried to put up some stats to justify being on the All-Star team, did that, and now she said, hey, the Chicago Sky sucked this year, peace out.
Script minutes if the headliner might dress but might not move well. Teammates cannot cement roles if touches and matchups swing hours before tip. Fans get daily hope followed by game-time disappointment. And across the league, narratives grow in the empty space where details should live. When an update stays vague, every microphone becomes a courtroom and every rumor gets air. You can feel the uncertainty on the floor, too. Players hedge decisions because they're bracing for a last-second shuffle. That hesitation shows up in slow closeouts, mistimed cuts, and missed boxouts. The box score list misses. The film shows the cause. Day-to-day can be a responsible medical label. It can also become a season-long riddle. When it stretches from days into weeks, the label stops calming anyone. It starts inviting heat. That's why this phrase, repeated often, pulls so much attention toward Reese. It's less about one game and more about the feeling that no one can. Predict the next one. And when you can't predict the next one, you look backward to see if the past can explain the present. But to understand the skepticism, you need to revisit how the last season ended.
Hey, look, bro, you got to remember, she quit in Unrivaled. She just stopped playing in Unrivaled. Said she was hurt, didn't show up for the championship game, didn't even show up and watch. Last season, she claimed her wrist was messed up, didn't finish playing in none of the games. Now, this year, she's saying this season, it's her back. It looked like she's not finishing playing in none of the games. The Sky needs you. The Chicago Sky, you guys are the gum on the bottom of the shoe of the league. They need Angel Reese to play in games. Angel, where you at? Where you at, Angel? This is nuts.
Fans have long memories. Last year's wrist shut things down quickly. The conversation was not about minutes limits or targeted returns. It was a hard stop. People accepted the medical explanation, but they also clocked the timing. At the same time, critics pointed to Unrivaled, saying the finish went missing there too, even on the biggest night. Supporters called it precaution. Detractors called it pattern. Fast forward, and the new season opens with a different body part, the same label and the same indefinite horizon. The human brain connects dots even when they should remain separate. In sports, patterns become reputations. Reputations become scouting reports. And once that happens, every move is read through a lens you did not choose. That is where Reese is trapped right now. The story readers built for her last year is shaping how they read this year. Medical privacy is real, and players owe strangers nothing about their bodies. But teams owe clarity to their plans, and fans crave concrete information. When both feel light, people write their own chapters. Those chapters got a major twist when one particular date on the calendar arrived. And that is where optics grabbed the wheel. Cities carry energy. Indianapolis had it circled. Chicago versus Indiana is appointment television right now. Eyes, cameras, debate shows, the works. Reese did not travel. A few weeks earlier, in that same city, she soaked an all-star weekend of attention, posed for cameras,
taking down plays during timeouts, and actually being part of the fight whether she's in the lineup or not. That's a commitment you can see, and more importantly, her team feels it.
I mean, I'm proud of this group. I think we've shown all season long, like, they're resilient, they're connected, they pull for each other, they enjoy one another, they celebrate one another, and, that stuff alone is good for 10 to 12 points a game. And, for this group, the way that they share the ball, how unselfish they are. I mean, I'm really proud of them. It's not been ideal circumstances all season long, but they've shown the character of who they are. They've been resilient. They've responded to adversity, and they continue to elevate one another. And, I couldn't be more proud of this group than I am at this moment.
and leaned into a viral moment centered around Clark. That contrast hit hard. To fans, it looks like the back cooperates for the spotlight, then tightens up for the scoreboard. That might be unfair. It is also how perception works. You cannot coach perception. You can only overwhelm it with consistency. When the biggest rivalry date arrives and the marquee player is not even in the arena, storylines write themselves. It is not just the absence, it is the no presence. If a star cannot play, being on the bench still sends a message. You are in the fight. You are in the huddles. You are visible to your teammates and your city. Remove that visibility, and the vacuum gets filled by theories, not facts. Those theories cluster around one idea that the internet loves more than any hot take. Call it risk management for the personal brand. The theory is blunt. When the All-Star vote dipped, the response was a hard push. Numbers jumped. Energy spiked. The ballot turned. Then, as the team's results cooled and the pressure rose, the risk to the brand rose too. That's when an absence shields averages and avoids the kind of game film that critics replay for months. Is that fair? It is impossible to know, but it is sticky because the sequence feels clean. Pressure, surge, validation, retreat. People love simple stories.
Last year with the Chicago Sky, you quit. You quit. You threw in the towel. Once you realized you no longer, you never stood a chance, to be honest, with Caitlin Clark for that Rookie of the Year. But once you realized your double streak was over, and it was over. She took over post-Olympic break. Once you realized it was done, you threw in the towel, said your wrist was hurting for the rest of the year. You threw in the towel and said your wrist was hurting for the rest of the year and didn't play again. This past the inaugural season of Unrivaled, you didn't even finish that season. You didn't even show up for the championship. No, not only did you not play, you didn't even show up to the game at all. People noticing a pattern with you. That's 2 seasons in a row.
Spread faster than nuance. There's another piece to the brand angle. Controversy feeds reach. Reach feeds deals. Deals feed the story that you are bigger than the box score. That works until the games get loud. Then the scoreboard talks back. The longer the day-to-day tag lingers, the louder the brand theory hums. Once that hum gets into a locker room, it affects trust. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be present. Trust is the most valuable currency in pro sports. Lose it, and possessions start to fray. Frayed possessions bring us to the part of the debate that is the most uncomfortable for any star. What if the offense looks cleaner without you? Offenses breathe through spacing and clarity. If the first touch is a wrestling match, your timing dies. If the first pass is late, your weak side shooter is already covered. When Reese sits, Chicago's rhythm often looks lighter. Guards flow into actions without forcing entries. Wings cut decisively. The ball reverses sides before a defense can reset. That is not about one player's hustle or heart. It is about geometry. Post-centric possessions can work beautifully when the player bends help and punishes it. They become messy when the entry is slow and the kickouts arrive late or the non-shooters.
I think Angel Reese, and I'm saying this with my chest out, I think she's quit on the Chicago Sky. She's been claiming a back injury basically since the All-Star break. And there's no details. Every day we hear that Angel Reese is day to day. And every week there's no update on what she's struggling with, what she's doing. There's nothing. There's no information about Angel Reese. I think she's quit on this season. I think this is a worse version than Kawhi Leonard.
Coaches watch for simple tells. Are the first two passes crisp? Are the weak side feet set when the ball arrives? Are you getting shots you practiced or shots you invented at the buzzer? When the Sky's offense looks more like a drill and less like improvisation, they win small battles that stack in the runs. This is why addition by subtraction shows up in pundit language. It does not mean Reese lacks talent. It means the current mix leans away from what she wants to do and toward what the rest of the group executes fast. That is a system verdict, not a character judgment. And the sharpest proof of a system verdict lives 180 miles away. Indiana's model keeps working through absences of its own. The Fever play like a team that knows who they are. Clock's gravity stretches the floor. Boston owns the middle without clogging the cuts. Mitchell thrives in the space those two create. Cunningham sets tones that never show up in a highlight, but always live in the film. Howard steady and runs. Hull stepping in the bigger moments without breaking rhythm. Swap one out. The actions remain the same. The reads remain the same.
Lexi Hull, who provides all the hustle plays.
I think it just says a lot about who we have as human beings. That was one of the things that we made a priority in the offseason of, who we bring into this organization. Number one, quality human beings, selfless human beings that want to pull for one another, that understand. We have this depth for a reason, and sometimes it creates challenges getting people on the floor. But in situations like this is why you have it. And I'm just, she's right. I mean, as a pro and as a pro coach, this is one of the most connected groups I've seen.
The pace is guided rather than frantic. That's what real systems do. They keep their shape when the star sits. They do not ask role players to cast play as someone else. They just turn the dial on volume. That's why the Fever beating the Sky without clock landed like a message. The jersey on the other side does not matter if your identity is fixed. And that is why Chicago's identity debate is so loud. If your best version appears only when a certain player is out, then the question is not about that player's ceiling. It is about your team's floor. The floor has to travel. If it does not, the standings tell on you. Travel brings us to a different kind of presence. Not stat sheet presence. Human presence. The kind that stabilizes huddles and calms fourth quarters. Players talk about the calm that certain teammates bring. It's not a slogan. It's a real shift in energy. When a star travels, locks in from warm-ups, engages during timeouts, and stays active in dead balls, everyone takes cues. You feel it on close games where one possession decides momentum. Leadership is not hand-waving. It's the quiet correction in a huddle that prevents a turnover. It's the nod that tells a shooter to let it fly. Equity is good. Availability is better. Front offices treat it like gold because availability decides futures. Pro basketball is a reliability business. Coaches need to know who they can pencil in, not in theory.
She identified once they lost Vandersloot, their point guard, early in the year, and once they started getting their brains beat in, hey, we're not going to win anything this year. I'm not putting these L's on my resume. I'm going to have an excuse for the Chicago Sky potentially coming in with the worst or second worst record in the WNBA. These losses will not be on my resume. What they do not understand is that coaches, and I know the WNBA in some regards isn't a real sports league, and I don't know if they think like real coaches and real people in sports, but the number one ability is availability. If you're not available, you have no value.
But in real life, 3 nights in 5 cities, trainers need to map workload, Scouts need to chart pairings. If one variable keeps turning red, you stop building around the variable and start building around what stays green. It sounds cold. It's also how winning organizations survive. The cap is tight. The season is short. Every gain carries outsized weight. A player who swings outcomes must be present to swing them. Availability forces hard questions for Chicago. Do you keep sculpting the identity around a profile that might not be there when the schedule gets cruel? Publicly, the league sells sizzle. Privately, teams chase steak, and that gap is widening in this story. Marketing builds heat. Win-loss columns build trust. Chicago has leaned into a star-forward story, which makes sense. Stars sell tickets. Stars boost clips. The problem appears when the real does not match the result. Fans do not bail when a star misses a game. They bail when the story stops matching what they watch.
Caitlin Clark appears to have a legitimate injury that everybody can trace to a moment and a time during the games where she re-aggravated. She originally injured. She had a comeback where it lasted 2 or 3 games, re-injured it. They've hinted at a time frame of late August that she may return. Nothing but a mystery surrounds Angel Reese. Indiana Fever destroy the Chicago Sky in Indianapolis on Saturday. Guess who wasn't there? Angel Reese. Angel Reese declined to travel to Indianapolis, and her coach came out and said something about, she's just focused on her rehab right now, and, she's day to day. We've never had an explanation on what caused the back injury, what's a time frame for her recovery. It's similar to so-and-so's back injury. This is something she struggled with here or there. All we've heard is day to day, and Angel Reese has disappeared.
Meanwhile, Indiana's numbers keep climbing because the product rarely betrays the pitch. When Clark plays, the ceiling is higher. When she sits, the identity does not collapse. Your attention feels rewarded. That's the deal fans want. For Reese, the longer the team plays cleaner without her, the more the brand becomes an argument rather than a celebration. No one wins those arguments for long. Attention without translation to wins becomes noise. The only fix is the most old-school one there is. Flipping the script is easier when the blueprint is obvious. Indiana's front office made theirs obvious on purpose. The Fever are building like a team that studied playoff basketball and reverse-engineered the pieces. They wanted pace but not chaos, strength without clogged lanes, shooting without sacrificing defense. Boston gives them a post who reads doubles and punishes them. Mitchell keeps defenders honest at all 3 levels. Cunningham's toughness turns 50-50 plays into 60-40. Howard gives you veteran counters when kids get sped up. Hull's activity's a problem you feel by the second quarter but only recognize in the fourth when your legs get heavy. Clark threads those parts together by throwing to a spot a beat before anyone else sees it. That is chemistry. It's less about vibes and more about reps. People think chemistry is about liking each other. Pressure is exactly what Chicago faces now. Not from talking heads, from the standings. And the next step?
Angel Reese! She might have tapped out, y'all. Angel Reese may have tapped out and quit on the Chicago Sky. Everybody is speculating. What is this back injury? What's going on? Hey, are you trying to pretend like you hurt because Caitlin Clark really is hurt? Wait. What's going on? What's going on, man?
Will define more than a month. It will define reputations. There's a clean fork in the road. If Reese returns, integrates, and the Sky's pace holds, you get a redemption arc that flips the conversation in a week. That is absolutely possible. Defenses start reacting to our gravity again, the guards get cleaner driving lanes, the wings feed on kickouts. If the offense bogs, the verdict shifts from health to fit. Then the front office has to choose between doubling down or evolving the identity away from a post-first star. That is not just a roster move. It is a branding move. It tells the league who Chicago wants to be for the next 2 seasons. What should fans watch for? 3 fast tells. 1. Early clock actions. If the first touch is a paint catch outside a rhythm, the pace dies. 2. Assist to turnover windows. If guards are skipping reads to force entries, you'll see it there. 3. Bench energy. Narratives harden into legacies when seasons stack. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Legacy is not just what you do on a good night. It's who you are on ugly ones. It's how you show up when numbers are thin and critics are loud. Stars with staying power learn two skills that do not show on stat sheets. They anchor a system, and they let the system anchor them. That balance turns you from a highlight into a foundation. Reese can absolutely choose that path. She can come back, communicate, fit the tempo, and convert her physical edge into cleaner team possessions. Do that, and the narrative flips faster than a news cycle. Indiana already walks that road. They built a core that makes sense together, then layered a star who amplifies the idea rather than replacing it. That's why they always feel one run away from taking a game, even when they trail. That's sustainable winning. Chicago can get there. The path is not secret. It's just hard. It asks a star to sacrifice touches for timing and a team to be brave about identity. And that brings us back to the start. The league does not need perfect stories. It needs honest ones. The court will decide which story survives. If you strip away the noise, here's the core. Day-to-day statuses erode trust, while visible leadership builds it. Chicago's best version will require clear roles, accountability, and a healthy, committed Angel Reese who raises the floor and the ceiling. Indiana's best version is already taking shape. System first, star amplified. Not isolated. You can argue motives all day. The court will decide. If you want breakdowns that cut through spin and stick to what the film and the results keep saying, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive. Drop your take in the comments. Is this a rough patch with a comeback on deck, or is the league watching a long-running pattern play out in plain sight? Your move.